Okay, so I'm going to show you how to embed a machine learning model into a web application. This is pretty easy. I'm going to use Streamlit. You can do it really fast. So if you have something that's kind of small and you want to do it pretty quickly to where you can use some sort of AI model and some sort of interface, I would use this. So this example you can see looping through here is an example of applying super resolution to images. So this is where a user can upload an image into this user interface. You can see drag and drop, select file, and then it applies super resolution, means it increases the resolution of the image, and then you can download it. A pretty simple application. It's actually very useful. I actually use this model pretty often for my own images. Here's what the results look like. So this is the before image of this baboon, and then the after applying super resolution. So you can see a lot, you get a lot more detail in all these sort of whiskers and stuff through here. And then the eye, there's a huge difference. This comes from the super resolution generative adversarial network. This is actually kind of recent, even though GANs are kind of not really being used that often. This came out in 2018. Here's the paper to it if you want to look at, take a look at it. I have it on my GitHub, obviously, so that's in the link in the description. There's not really too much interesting about this model. I'm not going to go into too much detail. The main thing is that it's a residual and residual dense block that they use. It means that they add residual connections within the residual block itself and then outside as well. So you can see that they have these residual connections within the block, and then you can see on the outside. So it's just, you can't go wrong adding more residual connections, I suppose. So it's probably pretty good for these really deep kind of networks that you get with these GANs. And then here's some other points about it, but I'm gonna kind of skip over that, kind of boring. So this is how you can install what you need. So you can just run it through the notebook. If you've ever seen this before, if you put the exclamation mark in front of the pip install, you can install through the Jupyter notebook as opposed to just installing through the command prompt or the conda prompt. And then here's how you import here. Download progress, true, so you can see it. This is a link to the image from the actual paper for this publication. So we're downloading that and we're saving it locally. We have a path for the saved model. So we're using their weights that they trained on. So we're not training our own model. We're just using the weights that were trained from that super resolution GAN. I'm not going to go through these step by step. It's kind of tangential to talking about putting a model into an application. But I commented this stuff really well, like super in depth, probably over commented. So if you want to go through, kind of figure out what's going on in these things, this is just loading and pre-processing an image, saving the pre-processed image, displaying the image. So here we're loading and pre-processing the image. We have the image path from before. We have the image here. We apply a TensorFlow squeeze, and then we display. Obviously, we're passing in the title, and then we have the saved pre-processed image. That's what we're doing there. Here we are loading the model. So then we initialize something called model. We have this time.time thing. We're just timing how long it takes the model to actually process this. So we pass in the image that we want to upscale. We get the upscaled image. We do the TensorFlow squeeze so that we can be able to display the image after. So it took about 0.74 seconds, so it's pretty quick. And this is the upscaled image. You can see the difference. It's pretty big. It looks like crazy different. But I mean, this is their demonstration images, so this is kind of one of the better examples. And then we have this stuff here. Obviously, when you're making an application, the most important thing is a logo. So you just get AI to make it. You get AI to write the code for it. And then we're slowly, taking us out of the whole process. So for actually using the Streamlit, I use that in PyCharm. I suggest you probably do that too. It's not going to really work well in a notebook, but there's not a whole lot that changes through it. I'll show you what changes and what you're using here. So again, importing kind of similar things, initializing some constant stuff here, same as before. Title, this is kind of my hacky way of doing this. I'm adding like HTML formatted padding. Nothing really interesting going on here. I have a link for my logo that I'm using, which is that duck with the magnifying glass from before. This is actually the only super interesting thing here that's going on. You're loading a cache model. I'll talk about what this is actually doing, but first we'll go look at the other things. So let's see. This is the same as before. This is converting a tensor to a NumPy array, so not really that interesting. We're clipping at the values for being able to display. Nothing crazy going on there. Upscaling, nothing. I think that's from before as well. This is the main loop. So think here, everything in this kind of main loop that kind of happens here gets called over and over unless it's kind of dictated differently. And what I mean by over and over was within Streamlit, if you move around within the application, what will happen is it'll keep reloading the model. So let's run the model and I'll come back and talk about this. So to run the model, I can just press this run up here. It'll load and then it'll come up with this thing telling me to run. Yeah, right here is, you can just copy this, go to the Anaconda prompt. I'm already running it, it seems like, but I can just stop it and rerun it. Okay, it doesn't want to copy. Okay, go back. Run it, it'll tell you to go here. It opens up automatically though. It's running, so right now it's actually loading the model. You can see it's going to take actually a little while to load the model, so we'll let it go. So now it's loaded the model. Okay, so I'll go back, and you see how long that took? That took a little while to load the model, like 5 seconds, something like that. I don't know, maybe more, 7, maybe 10, I don't know. But if we go back here, what happens if you don't put this is what's interesting. You see I have this load save model in this sort of wrapper. If I go here, if I just put hub.load model here, which I could do, what would end up happening is that it would load every time I move around on the page actually. So if I'm here, every time I'm moving around, and if there's anything else to click on within your user interface, I think sometimes even like moving the mouse through, like if you have a map or something else, it'll reload the model every time. So like every step that you do, if you're just like toggling a value, you click on something, maybe you have 2 models, you allow the user to switch between 2, it'll reload the model every time you try to switch between the 2. So that's kind of terrible. So what you do to stop that is you just add this st.cache resource. Obviously we can go look at, I think I have it here as well in the documentation. So you have 2 different things. This is here, caching stuff. So you have cache data and then caching resource. Pretty explanatory. This is the only thing you need to know. Anything you can't store in database, you store in a database, you do the cache resources. And then everything else is here. So you have like a pandas data frame, Python primitives, API calls, all these sort of things. Obviously data, it's pretty self-explanatory. And this is a catch-all for everything else. So obviously ML model right there, that's what we'll put ours in. And then after doing that, it won't reload the model every time. So if you had a button that clicked between 2 models, you could load 1 model, and then below that you could have, you know, maybe like model 2, and there's something else that loads a second model. And then you have maybe some sort of button that you clicked between the 2, and you could either apply a certain type of resolution or another certain type of resolution. Enhancer, it would reload both models every time. But if you do the cache resources, it caches it easy. And then here, this is actually interesting. So you can, in these markdowns, you can add stuff that, I mean, Streamlit is like nice because you can do things very quickly. It's very nice if you quickly need to make a user interface, but it doesn't have much. A lot of stuff you can't customize. Making pages can be a little bit more difficult than if you just use other things, like if you have like some sort of big interface, but you can embed just like normal HTML like this. So just as an example, I've used other things, but I wanted to put an image inside of something a little bit more than just something so normal as, you know, just text, you know, a title, this sort of thing. But all this stuff works well. This is actually a default thing, so you can just have where you can select images, come here, select the image, it'll apply the super resolution, like we'd seen before. Pretty simple. Let's go through the rest of the code here. This is a hacky way to get space. Honestly, I've looked at some of the tutorials and they don't suggest anything more intelligent with this, so I don't know. If I wanted to add space between things, like I wanted to put this logo down more, I don't know, that's what I did. I don't love it, but whatever. This is where I'm actually putting in so actually you see where these columns, this is column 1 and column 2. So I have blank space, column 1, blank space, column 2, blank space. And that what gives me kind of this look here where I have a blank space, a blank space, a blank space, and this is column 1, and this is column 2. That's how I like kind of arranging things. So that's where this is coming from. With column 1, we're adding all this stuff to column 1. So we are getting, well, that's not what I have. That's me talking to ChatGPT how to install things. So this is all column 1, and this is all column 2 over here. So column 2, you can see it here. Okay, pretty simple. I think that's it. I'm gonna do some more Streamlit tutorials. I'm actually gonna do one about like deploying this online so you can actually use it online. That'll be later. So if you're interested in anything with using Streamlit or any sort of other machine learning applications, I do a lot of different tutorials and paper reviews. So subscribe, like the video. Thanks.